Greetings, Dr. Mark Winton here from the University of Central Florida Department of Criminal Justice. I want to spend a few minutes talking about public criminologies. Most of this discussion is based on an article from Ugin and Inderbitsen, 2010, Public Criminologies, found in Criminology and Public Policy, Volume 9, pages 725 to 749. I also wanted to mention that you have access to this journal, the entire journal from day one to current, and you can easily link to the UCF library directly on the left-hand column in your Canvas web course. UCF library tools will get you right to that page. If you click on that, and you'll see resources and databases, and then you can search specific journals, and you can also search for different databases. For example, if you're trying to find out additional information on a topic for a paper. Okay, public criminologies. I found this fascinating, a set of articles, and there's a series. There's the main article, and then reactions and commentary on the article. And back when I was teaching in sociology, we talked about public sociology, and now public criminologies. In other words, what do we do as criminal justice scientists, as criminal justice professionals, in terms of interacting and dealing with and understanding and helping and assisting the general public? And I think I would include politicians in here as well, and policymakers for that matter. Some of the tasks that we could look at with public criminologies would be, for example, evaluating and reframing the images that we have of criminals in our general society. And certainly, if you think about it, and you all know this very well probably from your experiences in working in criminal justice scenarios, that people have a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about who's a criminal and types of criminals. And so you see this often erroneously depicted in the media, and also you hear about that. I can just think about discussions that take place in community policing meetings regarding what's considered by the general public suspicious behaviors. And so you have to consider how we might put that into perspective in presenting the information. Also, evaluating interventions, for example. I would mention that as a very important part of public criminologies, and very important in general, because we want to know if what we're paying for is actually working. And especially, we should be concerned that if certain programs may actually have a negative effect. We don't want to pay for negative effects, obviously. And we also want to see what specific programs work in what particular situations, and match that up. And we've seen programs that don't work, and sometimes those programs just keep getting funding, and they either make changes, or they keep getting funding, or someone finally says enough is enough. But we want to make sure that we have some evaluation research to support our programs. I mean, I know I've asked before people that work in different organizations or agencies, how do you know if this program works? And some have said, well, we have evaluation research, and we showed that it was effective, and it had this percentage decrease in the problem compared to a control group that didn't go through the program, and so on. And there's others that say, I don't know, seems to work. And the I don't know, it seems to work can be problematic, because we don't know. It may be a wonderful program, but it's important to evaluate. And evaluators sometimes are seen somewhat as threatening by organizations and programs, because they're worried, are we out to get them, or are we out to help them? I always see it as helping, because I think a lot of programs, in my own opinion, can be modified slightly to get even a better effect. And also presenting our knowledge, presenting knowledge from the discipline, and how do we communicate our research in a way that's meaningful and, of course, understandable. I remember going into a meeting years ago when I was real young, like 21 years old, and presenting to some administrators some research I was working on, and I said that the t-test indicated there were no significant differences between the two groups. And one of the administrators said, what are you talking about? T-tests? What? Significant difference? What are you talking about? And I learned right then and there that I have to reframe and present that research finding in a way that people can understand and also explain it fairly. There may be a statistically significant difference, but it's so minor we wouldn't even worry about it for the most part. Or there may be a huge difference that's not statistically significant for some reason, or a difference huge in terms of what we're studying, meaning clinically relevant. And so how do we have a dialogue with the public? How do we have that dialogue with the public? And how do we deal with different situations, for example, where there's panic over a particular situation? And how do we help the public address the panic in that regard? Or if there are certain groups that are counterproductive to getting policy passed that would be helpful, or supporting policy that would actually be harmful, how do we deal and interact with those types of situations? I mean, one of the things clearly, it's no secret that when you're dealing in the policy arena, you're dealing with people, and sometimes people can be very difficult to deal with. And that may or may not be the case for a particular scenario, and it may not seem like it's a big deal one way or the other. Or it may be you have a lot of support, or it may be that you just can't wait to wrap up that project and get away from that group. And so you may have some conflicts going on there. And so you also have to think about how to be a mediator, or how to take the criticism. I mean, I see some policymakers and public officials, they just can't take criticism, that everything they do worked fine. And even if it didn't work fine, they say, well, that's the best we can do, or we followed, standard operating procedure. And I always kind of look at it, can we do it better? And even in my own work, before I started teaching, when I ran treatment programs, I always was questioning, can we do this more effectively? Can we provide more treatment? Can we provide better treatment? Are we, missing certain things? What can we do to help our clients? And a lot of times I ask clients, what can I do? What can we do to help you more? And I learned things I would have never thought about. I found one court-ordered client didn't have money for the bus to get to the program that was court-ordered. And so what I did is I worked with another group who got her bus money and transportation so she could get to the program and wouldn't violate the conditions of her court agreement. They don't teach you that stuff in counseling school, or at least I didn't really think too much about that. Having someone have the funds to get to the program to start with. And so just things like that, where, are the programs located? And so there's a lot that really goes on here. And so we're dealing with professionals that work in our own field and professionals that work in other fields. We're working with policymakers, and we're working with the general public as well. And we may be working with different institutions, educational institution, for example, a religious institution. And I've worked with those institutions before, religious and educational. And there were very positive experiences. And sometimes there was more agreement and sometimes less agreement on how we should proceed with research or with interventions. And we may also really start addressing how our policies impact the public and what can be expected. And also we can start to uncover hidden problems as well. That, years ago I was going on and on and on about the opioid problem and some of the policies which I believed would increase the problem. And basically I was speaking to a YouTube channel that no one who makes policy was obviously listening to or cared about, because what ended up happening is our policymakers did exactly what I said don't do unless you want to see the opioid crisis get worse or increase dramatically, and talked about different hidden problems that were not recognized at the time, just based on talking to people, on reading studies, on understanding human behavior. And we can also analyze not only the scientific, but also the moral and the practical implications of policies. Certainly other things that we might consider are the specializations that we have in our field. that many times, sometimes I'm called to an interview or something of that sort, and it may be something that I know a lot about, and sometimes I'm called and it's something I don't know much about, so I will refer to one of my colleagues that can take care of that has that knowledge. And so a lot of times now, though, reporters ask me, am I knowledgeable about this particular area, or do I know someone who is? And of course, social media has a dramatic effect there. And I hope that that I made my YouTube videos public for a variety of reasons. But one is they're always there, and they're for anyone to watch. So, of course, it's kind of depressing when you put a video out there and you have 150 undergraduates and you see that only 25 have watched it. And then you think, are those 25 all my students? What if only 10 are and 15 people found it because they had an interest? And then my wife says, oh, those 15 people found it accidentally, and they said, oh no, we're at the wrong site, close this out. But it's there, so anyone, and I've met a few people who I've exchanged information with, or I've provided more information, and I've tried to give them the tools and information that might be helpful. And that, I believe, is part of my role working in a public academic institution. That if someone wants information, I'm going to try to get them that information and assist them in any way I can to make sound policies or practices or help them with their research. And so that's how I've tried to use media. And I've tried to avoid arguing, especially now that I run our 3 Facebook pages for the department. You're not going to see me dancing. You're not going to see me cooking. You're not going to see pictures of my oatmeal and raisins in the morning, and you're not going to see pictures of my salad in the evening. But you are going to see things about, seminars that are coming up, law schools that are visiting, criminal justice agencies that are hiring. So I find that there's a lot more, at least it seems to me there's a lot more public relations that goes on. I never took a course in public relations. Years ago it was suggested I do, but I didn't. And I just kind of realized that I just have to be who I am, but always be respectful and try to bring in the research. Also, there's the ethic of responsibility regarding communicating with the policy and making sure that we're communicating accurate information and always providing the limitations of our research. Sometimes I'll present something and someone says, well, I'm not in that group and I don't do that. And I said, you're right. And your group wasn't studied. So we need to really also present the limitations of our research. That's all in almost every article I read. The professional journals, there's a section at the end called limitations, and also suggestions for further research. And a kind of hidden section is why you should fund my future research. And so there's different features there that are discussed in the article, and then the follow-up we see some very relevant information there from Professor Paul Rock. Talks about making and studying policy, and then Professor Tonry talks about some situations of public criminologies and evidence-based policies on programs that were questionable in terms of their effectiveness. And Dr. Tonry also points out, will policymakers learn from public criminology, and will they accept the findings and so on. So again, some interesting features here in terms of what we see with public criminologies. There's a lot of debate to sum up with in terms of what academic criminology professors do and what the applied and clinical criminal justice professionals are doing in practice, for example, and what should we be doing. And what I know is that at the university, not only our department but other departments as well are very much applied and embedded in the community, trying to solve real problems that our community members face every day. So we're already very much practicing public criminologies, and a lot of academic um, practitioners, I should say, are also involved in assisting with program evaluation or program development and so on. And so a fascinating set of articles, but certainly something to think about as well. And this wraps up this video. Thank you.